Bill, thanks very much for coming in.
Hey, Wolf, you see if I wrote for you, you see how funny you'd be?
I would be funny too. I'm not a very funny guy like you. Let's get to healthcare in a moment because you had a strong commentary on it the other night. But let's talk about Sarah Palin first, now the former governor of Alaska. And among other things, in her departing comments, she said this.
You're going to see anti-hunting, anti-Second Amendment circuses from Hollywood. And here's how they do it. They use these delicate, tiny, very talented celebrity starlets. They use Alaska as a fundraising tool for their anti-Second Amendment causes.
All right, she made some references to Hollywood, and since you're out there in L.A., you know something about Hollywood. I want to give you a chance to respond. Did you have a chance to watch her comments in announcing that, you know, in her formal final remarks as governor?
Of course, Wolf. I would never miss a Sarah Palin speech, even though there seems to be a new one every week. I mean, how many times does this woman get to quit? But first of all, I want to know, who is this tiny starlet she's talking about? Miley Cyrus?
Somebody who went up to somebody who did some sort of PSA in Alaska, I guess.
But, you know, I mean, when you think of tiny starlets, I think of Ashley Olsen. I just want to know who she's talking about. Second of all, I think it's a little ungrateful. Who has been better to guns than Hollywood? Hollywood does nothing but make movies with 1 million guns, killing people and blowing everything up. So she should reconsider her remarks.
Do you think she has a future nationally as a presidential candidate?
I don't know about a presidential candidate, but I would never put anything past this stupid country. Yep. Possibly. I think she certainly could get the nomination, considering what the Republican Party has become and where they are right now. I think she still has a high favorability rating, but it's always going down. The more people see her, the less they usually like her. I think she's probably too much of a loose cannon, which is something she also shoots wolves with, by the way, to run for president. You have to be pretty disciplined to run a national campaign over months and months and months. And she just doesn't seem to have that in her DNA, as she would say. You know, this speech she just gave was another rambling sort of non-address. You'd think after the last one and all the criticism it got, she would have said to whatever handlers or people she has around her, okay, let's do this speech now like a laser. Let's just get it right down and focus. This is my last shot. But no, it's another rambling attack on tiny starlets. I mean, she's the gift that keeps on giving to comedians, I'll tell you that.
I know you've got some good material that you've used from her over this past year.
Also, I mentioned war contractors. We have more private contractors in Iraq than we do soldiers. They're paid a lot more than the soldiers. They do things soldiers used to do for themselves, like laundry and cooking meals. And the fourth one I mentioned was television news, something you're very familiar with. That used to be a lost leader. That used to be nonprofit. You know, a generation or two ago, not everything in this country had to be for profit. Some areas were roped off, and we said, that's just too important to put the profit motive in, because the profit motive always poisons everything to a degree. But we've changed. We've become a different society. Everything has to be for profit now, and some things shouldn't be.
No room for capitalism in our country. Capitalism has been good.
Of course capitalism is good. I am not a communist. No, I am a capitalist, absolutely. But as a society, we used to understand that it didn't have to go everywhere. You know, when capitalism becomes this religion, and it's ironic because usually it's the people who are most religious in this country who believe, or at least treat capitalism like it is truly their God. Unfettered. I would say capitalism is the correct economic system. Communism was trying to make the river flow the wrong way. No, you have to use human selfishness. That is what capitalism is. But there have to be some dams and locks on the river.
Back to Bill Maher, the host of Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO, our sister network. Bill, a couple little clarifications because we're getting flooded with email already. Earlier, Sarah Palin, I asked, does she have a future ahead? And you said something to the effect, I don't put anything past this stupid country. So people are already complaining that you're calling the United States a stupid country and giving you a chance to clarify.
I don't need to clarify. It is.
Well, tell me why you think the United States is a stupid country.
Because Sarah Palin could be president. I mean, please, do I need to expand on that anymore? Yeah, I do. I think this is, in general, I mean, it's a big country. That's the great thing about it. There's 300 million people here. So within this large country, there are tens of millions of very bright, intelligent people. You know, the ones who are watching us. Not the ones who are writing the emails. But, you know, in general, gosh, you know, this country just gets dumber and dumber by the day. And I don't think I have time on your show to list all the reasons.
But this country did elect Barack Obama president of the United States.
Look who he was running against. Yes, I mean, look at the situation. I mean, this was after 8 years of Bush, which was, you know, a pretty much a disastrous presidency. John McCain was not a very attractive candidate, and of course he picked Sarah Palin to run beside him. And, you know, given that choice, I think Americans, you know, came to the fore on that one. But just because they elected a bright guy doesn't mean they're bright.
Let's talk about Professor Gates and this controversy. How do you think the president's handling this uproar?
Well, I'm sure he wished he picked his words differently, but I don't think he was wrong. You know, there's a guy who used the word stupid, and look what happened to him.
You don't think it was wrong for him to say the police acted stupidly?
Absolutely not. I think they did. You know, I'm not even sure if this is really a racial situation, because, you know, I don't know if this cop is racist, but I have to say, you know, it seems to me more like a police situation. I mean, I think Henry Louis Gates was arrested for the crime of not kissing the behind of the police officer. And I think that's too often the problem we have in this country with the police. You know, Michael Moore, when he made his movie, his brilliant movie about healthcare, he said something interesting. He said what he found out was that in America, the people are afraid of the government. And in France, the government is afraid of the people. Well, in a similar way in this country, I think the people are afraid of the police, and it shouldn't be that way. I asked this question on the show Friday night. I still don't have an answer. Why was this man arrested? I can see why the police came. I could see why they went into his home. I could see why they asked him to step out. But at that point, they knew everything they needed to know about the situation. He wasn't a burglar. It was his home. Who was being threatened? If you arrest somebody, I assume it means because they are in some way a threat. What was the threat? Why couldn't that policeman just walk away at that point?
Well, I wasn't there, you weren't there. We don't know the extent of the disorderly conduct, if there was, in fact, disorderly conduct.
Come on, Wolf. Wait a second. Disorderly conduct?
I don't know if there was.
He's a 58-year-old crippled professor. Are you telling me he was a threat to the people in his neighborhood? He was going to go on a rampage with his cane?
Well, no,
come on.
Some of his colleagues, Sergeant Crowley's colleagues, including African-American cops who were there, they back him up. They back up Sergeant Crowley and saying he did absolutely the right thing.
Yes, because they're policemen and they stick together. But I'm telling you that's the wrong attitude. I'm not saying there aren't good cops. Of course there are. Probably most of them. But I just think there is a bad attitude also that you find too often in the ranks of the police, you know, and that attitude is, if you don't kiss my behind, I'm going to arrest you.
All right, I want you to give me a grade for the following individuals, a quick grade in the 6-month mark of the Obama presidency, and tell me how they're doing, A being the best, F being failure. Barack Obama.
I would give him, at this point, A-, B+. I mean, it's only been 6 months. Obviously, he inherited a huge mess. But it looks like the economy is, you know, fingers crossed, turning around to a degree. It certainly could have been a lot worse. We were facing a sort of a meltdown. It could have gone the other way. I don't think we're out of the woods. There's a lot of areas I've been critical of. I've had a lot of criticism of my show recently from the left, who say you're being too hard on Barack Obama, to which I say that's my job, to be hard on the president, to hold his feet to the fire. But given what he has inherited and where we are now and what's possible, you know, working with a Congress he gets no help from the Republicans, and his own party are very often not a lot of help. You know, I think he's doing pretty good.
What about Joe Biden?
Well, you know, I love Joe, but even my patience is wearing a little thin with Joe.
What
you know,
grade?
This
What
this
grade
whole
do you
idea of I guess I'd give Joe a C+. You know, I'm not sure all the things he's doing, because some of the things you don't hear about that the vice president is doing. You just mostly hear about the comments that he makes. And, you know, this idea that I'm not going to change, I'm just going to be Joe, I'm always going to be the guy. Change a little, Joe. You don't always have to say everything that comes into your head, you know. Have that mechanism that edits.